Hi, my name is James Heywood and this is Kris Jagasia. We're from Off2Class. We recently spent some time in Aguascalientes at the University of Technology El Retoño. We had a great time down there. So what we're going to do today is speak to you about how the University of Technology El Retoño is using Off2Class within the BIS framework.
Thanks, James. Yes, last week we were down in Aguascalientes and myself and James held some workshops for the teachers at UTR. The first workshop was for the immersion teachers. The focus was on instructional design, and we taught them some tips about how we can save them time preparing digital content to supplement their immersion program classroom teaching. The second workshop was for the TSU teachers, and these teachers are actually using Off2Class with their third-year engineering students. And what we focused on in that workshop was getting their feedback about their experiences using Off2Class with these students and offering them some tips about how they can get even more use out of us. The third workshop was again an instructional design workshop, but the really nice thing about this session was it was for the English pedagogy students, and we were able to give them tips that was going to be helpful for them in their careers as teachers. The fourth and final workshop was for the rest of the BIS team. We invited the academic directors and English language department heads to come and learn a little bit about the work we're doing with UTR.
So far, UTR has been using Off2Class for two use cases, specifically within their programs. The first use case is they're using us with their third-year engineering students. There was a feeling that these third-year engineering students needed additional advanced content at the B1 to B2 level as grammar reinforcement and to give more variety to the existing curriculum. We also noticed when we were doing the workshops with these teachers last week at UTR that the teachers were using Off2Class beyond just the courses that we designed for them. They were using our placement tests to build individual learning plans for some of the students that needed extra attention. So we're going to show you all about the placement tests and individual learning plans on Off2Class shortly. The other use case was at the Language Center. The Language Center was asked by the local government in Aguascalientes to teach English to the local elementary school teachers. They had a large volume of teachers at a very beginner level, and they didn't actually have access to these teachers, so they were using Off2Class to deploy this large-scale community outreach distance learning program. Now, what we've learned during our week at UTR. The reason I actually chose this image down below is because on our first day at UTR last week, we actually got to witness the graduation presentations of the immersion students. And these students were putting on mock museum presentations from different museums from around the world. And as you can see, what we witnessed was that these students were extremely motivated and energetic. So this is one half of the language acquisition equation. It's key that these students are seriously motivated. We definitely learned that the BS model is ambitious. So to think that these students had just come out of a 5-month immersion program, and some of them had effectively no English going into that, and were able to have a kind of a strong A2 level on graduation day means that this is an ambitious program, yet it's achievable. We also learned that the teachers at UTR, and we imagine the rest of the BIS team members, are definitely fresh thinking, and they're open to trying something new to meet their ambitious goals. What we also learned about the UTR curriculum, and what particularly interested us, was the immersion program. Now, we learned from Gabriela Zamoran, she fully explained the English language immersion program, that for 4 months, students receive 525 hours of instruction and are expected in some cases to progress from 0 to an A2 level. We also understand that after the immersion program, these same students are going to start taking technical classes in English. Implementing the immersion program has both challenges for educators and students. What we learned for educators is that delivering up to 7 hours of English every day to the same group of students involves extensive planning. It's really difficult to rely on one single source of content. So we found that the immersion teachers that we held a workshop for were really intensely building some of their own resources that they could use to supplement and give a mix to the existing curriculum and course books that were being used in the immersion program. For students, we learned that, in such an intensive program, many of these students hit a plateau relatively quickly, and this could potentially cause them to lose motivation. So we realized that you're going to really need to encourage motivation with your students by using more than just one book and photocopied worksheets. We think that interactive digital content will be a key tool to mix up the resource base and inspire student motivation, especially in this intensive immersion program. We also understood from the team at UTR that about 10% of any immersion student group has trouble meeting the A2 level at graduation. So for these students, you're going to need an additional targeted attention to really map to these students. So now I'm going to show you a little demonstration of Off2Class and how we're working with UTR and how we imagine we can complement your BIS model. So I'm currently logged into Off2Class as a teacher. Here I have access to over 700 lessons that I can use in a live teacher-led setting. I've got one lesson opened up. So you could imagine that I would be leading this lesson on a projector or a TV screen or whatever you have equipped in your classrooms. On the right, I have the lesson content, and on the left, I have the teacher notes. So as I move through the lesson content, the teacher notes move with me. Now, if my students were following along to this lesson, I would hide the teacher notes. So this content is all designed for a teacher-led lesson. This is one of our new lessons from the step-by-step curriculum. So it includes a reading activity, a little bit of explicit grammar. It's all designed for a conversational approach. It makes a really nice transition from using a course book and can be a good complement. We're thinking especially for the immersion program. So I'm also going to show you that this content is adaptable. So depending on how my students are reacting to the content, I can use the annotations, the magnifying glass. I can right-click on any word to bring up a host of controls such as a Google Translate, image search, a dictionary. So I can use all these different controls to adapt the content for my students' needs. Now, the other thing I'll show you is the quality of our listening activities. So, of course, listening is very important, especially in such an intensive immersion program.
Good morning. Can I help you?
Yes, please. I'd like some potatoes.
Potatoes? Sure. How many would you like?
So I'll also show you that each of these teacher-led lessons also comes with a reinforcement homework activity. So you can preview the homework from directly within the classroom. And we also know that in such an intensive immersion situation, it's critical that every student makes every lesson, because if a student misses more than one lesson, they're simply going to fall behind and not going to be able to catch up to their peers. So when we worked with UTR, we actually set up custom courses for the team there so that every student was enrolled into every lesson ahead of time. So that means that every student had access to their homework on their own side of Off2Class that they could complete on any internet-connected device, and they also had a copy of the lesson. So after class each day, the students have access to this homework that reinforces these classes. They can finish these lessons in class if they have access to their own devices. If they have access to the computer lab, these self-study activities can be used in a lab setting, Or if the students have access to any internet-connected device from home, these can be completed at home or while traveling to and from the university. So the fact that teachers have bright digital content, but it's supported by a homework activity after class is quite powerful. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you is what we call the learning plan. So in Off2Class, you can actually assign each of the students our placement tests. And what you get back as the institution is actually quite powerful. So like all placement tests, we produce a grammar level diagnostic. So this is mapped to the CFR, as are all of our lessons. But what's a little bit different from a typical placement tests is the gap analysis. And basically, for every question that each student got wrong on the placement test, we show you the question, we show you what the student put and the right answer, but most importantly, we show you the lessons from our library that deal with that deficiency. So for those 10% of students that need a little bit of extra attention, our placement test provides an individualized curriculum that you can use to assign lessons to these students that might need some extra help. For example, I could click on this lesson, enroll my student Jose into the lesson as the system is prompting me, and instead of walking the student through the teacher-led lesson, I could go immediately to assigning the homework to Jose. So I could then have Jose complete this individualized learning that I know is relevant to him based on his results as a strategy to get him up to the speed of the rest of the group and hoping for that A2 level by the graduation day. So in closing, we really feel that the Off2Class software tool really maps to the BIS model. For the B, bilingual, well, this is obvious. We don't really need to go into this, but yes, Off2Class is a software toolkit for English as a second language program delivery. So we're only for ESL. We're international, we're written by a diverse team, we're present in 85 countries, and our content writers have all taught in international schools. As you can tell from our trip down to UTR, we pride ourselves in partnering with international institutions, and we love visiting our schools and our partners on the ground. Finally, the S, sustainability. We are sustainable. Our job is to eliminate your photocopier and save the 20 minutes of time that is required for paper-based class preparation. We work off any internet-connected device, so there's no app to download. Your students can simply access us from the browser on any Android or iPhone or tablet or laptop. We can make use of any projectors you have in the classroom, any computer labs you might have set up, and of course, even if students don't have a smartphone at home, they can borrow a parent or friends to do their homework. We found that this homework access using Off2Class has huge benefits for your students because they get used to accessing a platform and it starts to develop English digital literacy, which of course will be extremely important for them in their professional lives. My closing point is I know that sometimes when you think of a software platform, it sounds really hard to implement. But actually, implementing Off2Class is really quite simple. Instead of ordering a bunch of course books which might not come in time and having to go get the students to pick up the books at the local store and perhaps missing several weeks of instruction at the start of an immersion program or any year of instruction, implementing our software is very straightforward and teachers and students have access to the program immediately on day one, and you get to start running right away on the immersion stream and on the language instruction stream. And at the end of the day, we like to partner with institutions. So when you work with Off2Class, you'll be working with a team that has been down to Aguascalientes and worked with the UTR team for a week. And we know a lot about the BIS modality, but we want to learn about the BIS modality specifically in your institution. So please get in contact with me here. My name is Kris Jagasia. I've got my email address here, my phone number here. I've also included this in the video description below. And please get in contact, and we'd love to learn about your BIS institution and your teachers and your students. Thanks for listening.